So many of us artists and creatives really struggle with productivity, with time management, with staying focused. And unfortunately, for so many people out there, this is exactly what impedes them from achieving that success, that skill level that they have it in them to achieve as artists. They don't work on their mindset. They don't work on their productivity. They don't work on their goal setting, their time management. I know that as creatives, as free spirits, as people who like going with the flow, these words and these kind of topics can actually kind of repel us initially. I know that it was like this for me. For the longest time in my life, I didn't set goals. Setting goals overwhelmed me, it scared me, and honestly now looking back, it was probably because I was afraid of disappointing myself, I was afraid of disappointing others, I was afraid of putting in a ton of work and not reaching whatever goal it is that I had set for myself. But also looking back, I was extremely scattered all the time. I was overwhelmed. I was very anxious and stressed out and depressed as well because I was going crazy with all of these things that life was throwing at me that I had to just do. And I found that I never had the time that I wanted and needed to do those things that actually lit me up, to devote time to my passions. It was only after I actually tried to set goals. It was only after giving myself permission to work on my projects and trial and error, going over that process of setting goals over and over again, discovering what worked for me, what didn't work for me, continued reading books on developing better habits and time management and all of these things, that I was not only slowly but surely reaching those milestones that I set for myself. And this absolutely 100% helped me develop my self-esteem, but I actually found myself a lot happier because I had more time for those things that I wanted to have time for. I was no longer going through life reacting in that reactive mode, but I was now being proactive about what I wanted to achieve and what I wanted my days to look like, what I wanted to make time for. And this really helped my anxiety and my depression. So I want to encourage you, if you don't like setting goals and you don't like structuring your days and having little to-do lists and things like that, first of all, ask yourself why this is. And if you find that you are avoiding these things because of limiting beliefs or self-doubt or things like that, I just want to encourage you to give them a try little by little. And I have tons of resources, workshops that are going to help you implement this in a smart way. I will be leaving links to many of those resources down below for you in case you'd like to check them out if you haven't already. These things are so incredibly important if we are looking to reach any big goal as artists, whatever that goal may be. A certain level of discipline and consistency are going to be required in order to reach that big goal, so that our creativity and our art practice can actually become just something that we do, if not every single day, then very frequently throughout the week, so that it can become a habit for us. Having said all this, I'm going to be moving on to sharing my top 5 productivity tips. And these are things that I make sure to do as an artist every single day in order to stay as productive as possible, consistently make progress towards my goals every single day, but also be happy along the way. Enjoy the process, enjoy putting in the work. So let's jump straight into tip number 1. This one is prioritize your mental and physical well-being. Your health is the absolute foundation for everything else. You cannot expect to have the energy, to have the focus, to have the positive disposition if you're not taking care of your health first. If you are unwell, if you are sick, even if you're tired, you're going to be more easily frustrated. You're going to have more difficulty arriving at better outcomes because you're unable to focus. Nowadays, I make sure to devote the first hour of my day to my mind and to my body, to prepare myself for the day. And I cannot even begin to describe the difference that starting to make time for yourself in the morning, even if it's just 10 to 15 minutes to devote to your mental and physical well-being, makes for the rest of your day. And this could look like going out for a 20-minute walk. It could look like doing some morning journaling, morning pages. It could look like making yourself a lovely cup of ginger tea and just sitting outside somewhere and reflecting on the previous day. It could look like meditating or doing house chores while listening to a helpful podcast that is going to help you get into a positive headspace for the day. Nowadays, I feel incredibly blessed that I own my own business and I'm able to structure my days to my liking in order to be able to wake up at a certain time and have that first hour before jumping into my work. But this is a habit that I started implementing since I was still working at my last regular full-time job. So I started waking up at 5 a.m. instead of 5:30 a.m. in order to make myself a little morning tea, in order to do some meditation, in order to even do a little bit of cardio, moving around before getting ready for the day. And that was huge for me. It actually kind of snowballed into bigger, better habits that really contributed to my mental and physical well-being. So many times when an artist is struggling with artistic burnout or artistic block, actually the root has nothing to do with their art or creative practice, and it has everything to do with the fact that they are mentally/physically exhausted. And that is what they need to work on. Their health is actually what they need to work on. They need to develop better habits for eating right, for exercising, for sleeping a good amount. You know, all of these things have an impact on how your work flows and how everything goes there, your enjoyment of your work. When it comes to mental health, having white space throughout the day, giving yourself breaks, feeding yourself positive, helpful information instead of alarming news all the time, limiting the time that you're spending on social media or unfollowing those people that you're finding yourself constantly comparing yourself with, or those accounts that constantly make you feel like you're behind in life. When it comes to physical health, making sure that I'm feeding myself 90% healthy food that is full of nutrients, that is going to make me feel good and help me stay energized and focused, but also moving my body a few times a week. It can be in the morning, it can be in the afternoon, whatever makes sense for you. But your mental and physical health are completely intertwined. And again, they are the foundation for everything else in your life. Moving into tip number 2. And this one is going to be to have a to-do list for the day. But when I say to-do list, I don't mean a list of a gazillion things that you need to get done throughout the day. I don't know about you, but seeing a list of so many things that need to get done is just very overwhelming and can lead to disappointment because you're only able to do like 20% of the things you have there. No. The lists that I create for myself are short. I have specific priorities. At most, they are 3 key things that I need to make sure to get done in the day. Usually, I place a little asterisk or I circle those 3 main priorities that absolutely need to get done before I close my office for the day. And the other things are not as important. So if I don't get to the other less important things, then I just add them into the to-do list for the next day, and I don't feel bad about it. It's perfectly okay. Now, I share all about my goal setting method and how I establish long-term goals and break down those long-term goals into short-term objectives and weekly tasks in a past workshop that I shared on goal setting that I'll make sure to link to down below in case you'd like to check that out. I create my to-do lists in simple notebooks based on what I have in my weekly agenda, based on my long-term goals. And I actually have my notebook in front of me on my desk during my working hours of the day, and my agenda is closed and set aside. And what I like doing is, before ending my workday, I create my to-do list for the following day. So I take out my planner, I check out my weekly agenda, and I create my to-do list. And if there's anything that I didn't get done in this day that I want to do the following day, I just add it to my to-do list for the following day. Oftentimes, when I've been very busy or things have taken up more time than I initially anticipated, and I notice that there's a bunch of little things, little tasks that are just not getting done, and I haven't been able to get to them in, say, a week or two, instead of continuing to add those little teeny tiny tasks and running the risk of creating a super huge to-do list, I actually take time to reflect on whether doing those things is actually important at this time. If they are not very important, I consider just doing them later, or maybe changing that specific goal that they are connected with. It's all about knowing your priorities and giving yourself grace and being willing to stay flexible. Be like water. Moving into tip number 3, and this one is discover at what time you're most creatively productive. And this one is going to require exploration on your end and really paying attention. I'm going to be linking to a couple of articles that I found on discovering your circadian rhythm and many interesting things that are going to help you analyze these things about yourself better so that you can come to this conclusion faster. People have different circadian rhythms. Some people are morning people, some people are like night owls, and there are people in between. And I think I'm more of an in-between person. I'm definitely not a morning person. If you ask my husband or anyone that knows me, if I could get away with not even talking for the first 2 hours of the day, I would be so happy. I do like waking up at 6 a.m., but for me, that first hour in the morning is, as I said before, quiet time, slow time to prepare myself mentally and physically for the day. I would definitely not say that the first part of the day after waking up is when I am most energetic or productive, because that is definitely not my personal case at all. I think for me, I'm most productive and focused at like maybe 9 or 10 a.m., and then it starts to dwindle again. It's also important to know that you may consider yourself one thing, but it's just habits that you have throughout the day that are kind of throwing you off. So what I mean by this is you might think that you're not a morning person, but it's just because you're going to bed super late. Or you might think that you always crash and have super low energy at a certain point of the day, but it's maybe because you're not eating right. You're eating foods that are too sugary. You're not having enough protein. You're drinking too much coffee, and that's also affecting your energy and focus levels, right? So your time that you go to bed, the food you put in your body, and how you move throughout the day have a huge impact on your energy and your focus. So I just want to encourage you to explore these things and pay attention. Are you most energetic and focused right after waking up, or a little bit later in the morning, or midday, or later in the afternoon? If you can, because I know that we're not all in the same situation. A lot of us work or have kids, and our daily schedule is built around these responsibilities. But if you can do your highest, most creative work during those times that you can really turn on those executive functions. Try it if you can. It doesn't mean that you can't work on brainstorming, on quick sketching, thumbnails, creative exploration when your brain is a little bit slower, because you totally can. You might even find that it is easier for you to get into that creative flow when you're working, when you're not at your most highest energy, most focused self. Try keeping a log for a week of how your energy and your focus wax and wane throughout the day, so that you can have a more objective view, and then you can see if your creative practice can fit into those times. Moving into tip number 4, and this one is minimize distractions during your working hours. Nowadays, we live in a world of constant distractions. For me, I always have my phone on airplane mode. I do not want it to be dinging and ringing all day and just distracting me and getting me out of my flow. People know not to call me when I am working. People know that I won't be answering their WhatsApp messages. I don't go on social media when I have established a specific block of time that I'm going to be working in. It's important to set rules or limitations with these kinds of tools, especially if you're finding yourself being constantly distracted by these things. It's also very important to actually talk with the people that you live with. If it's your spouse, if it's your children, if it's whatever family member, whether you're going to be working on your art for an hour 3 times a week, or when your baby is taking naps, or whether you're actually building up your business and doing this for a couple of hours every day after your full-time job. Your family members, your partner, whoever it is, they should know what you're working on, and also where you're going to be doing it and what times of the day you're going to be busy, so that you can minimize distractions. In a past Art Tip Saturday video, I talk about the importance of having a space to work on your art in, having a specific area that you're going to be working in, knowing that you're going to be working there in those times of the day, on those days that you establish for yourself, is very, very helpful. Even if it's just the end of your living room table, the way that it was for me in the beginning, or a corner of your room, or whatever the case may be, having a deliberate space that is set up for your art practice, that has your art supplies available right there for you, maybe is also inspiring to work in. You have some things around you that inspire you, that motivate you. That is very helpful, because you now know what times, what days you're going to be working on your art in, but also where you're going to be doing it. And finally, moving on to tip number 5 that I always make sure to do to stay happy and productive throughout the day. And this one is going to be to make sure that I am having breaks throughout the day. I also make sure to have margin times or buffer times in between those blocks of high focus work throughout the day. Something that leads to lots of exhaustion and overwhelm is setting a high energy task followed by another high energy task, followed by another high energy task, and not accounting for any breaks or white space, or at least buffer time in between those. I don't do that anymore. It leads to a lot of anxiety. And when it comes to creative work, I think that it's good to overestimate the amount of time that is going to take. Give yourself more time than you think you need. Don't give yourself way too long, and do set a little kind of time constraint for yourself, because otherwise the task is probably going to take you longer than it should. But don't give yourself too little time either. And the more that you work on your art, the more you're going to know how long things actually take, and the better you're going to become at establishing better kind of time constraints for yourself, better time blocks. But just make sure that you're giving yourself enough time. I don't like sitting for too long during the day. I like having breaks every 30 to 40 minutes or so to stand up, walk around, stretch, have some water, have a bite to eat. I take a lot of breaks during the day. Throughout the day, I focus hard for a bit and take a break, and go back to focus hard for a bit and take another break, and so on and so forth. Back in the day, I took no breaks because I thought it was a waste of time. I just wanted to get the thing done as quickly as possible. I didn't get up to hydrate. I didn't get up to stretch. I went too long without eating. I didn't enjoy the process of creation at all. And I was completely ignoring my mental and physical well-being by ignoring all of these important things that I actually needed to do for my body and my mind, that at the end of the day, that led to physical and mental exhaustion. And at a macro level, because I was burning out, I produced less. So incorporate breaks into your day. It's incredibly important. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that it encourages you to keep on working on these things and that it inspires you to continue working towards your goals. Thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful rest of your weekend and talk to you soon. Bye.